Your morning routine might be quietly working against you. And the frustrating part is, you probably think you're doing everything right. If you're managing blood pressure and you wake up most mornings to a reading that's still too high, despite the medication, despite the effort, despite choosing what every label tells you is a healthy breakfast, this video is for you. Because that breakfast, it may be the exact thing keeping those numbers elevated. This isn't about scare tactics. It's about one specific, overlooked piece of information that most people on blood pressure treatment never hear from anyone. Before we go further, nothing in this video replaces your doctor's advice or your current medications. This is educational information only, but it may be one of the most practically useful things you watch this week. Let's start with what's actually happening in your body during those early morning hours. From roughly 6 a.m. to noon, your body enters what's called the morning cortisol surge. Cortisol, your natural wake-up hormone, rises sharply as you come out of sleep. That spike is entirely normal, but it also causes a temporary narrowing of blood vessels, raises heart rate, and makes blood pressure naturally climb. This is why morning readings tend to run higher than afternoon ones. Cardiologists even have a name for it, the morning blood pressure surge. And it's associated with a significantly higher risk of cardiovascular events in the hours right after waking. Now here's where breakfast enters the picture, and where things can quietly go wrong. Imagine a retired teacher named Carol. She's 67, takes her blood pressure medication faithfully every morning, eats what she genuinely believes is a clean diet, and still finds herself staring at readings in the 150s before noon. Her doctor adjusts her dose. Things improve slightly. But no one ever asks what she eats for breakfast. Carol's morning routine. A packet of instant oatmeal, the maple and brown sugar kind, and a glass of orange juice. On the label, whole grain. Heart-healthy claims right on the front of the box. What the label doesn't say is that a single flavored instant oatmeal packet can contain 12 to 17 grams of added sugar. Add that juice, and she's consumed another 20 to 25 grams of natural sugar within the first 20 minutes of being awake. That's nearly the entire daily limit for added sugar recommended by the American Heart Association, before 8 a.m. And here's what that sugar does to blood vessels during that already vulnerable morning window. Rapid sugar intake causes a quick spike in blood glucose. The pancreas responds by flooding the bloodstream with insulin. That insulin surge, especially on a fasted overnight system, triggers something called reactive inflammation, a short-term but real inflammatory response in the lining of blood vessels. When blood vessel walls become inflamed, even mildly, they constrict. They become stiffer, less responsive. Blood has to push harder to get through. And in someone whose vessels are already under strain from hypertension or arterial stiffness, that extra push directly shows up in the morning reading. This is a cycle many people don't recognize because the foods causing it carry an enormous amount of health credibility. Oatmeal, granola, orange juice, whole grain cereals. These have been marketed as heart-healthy for decades. And the grain itself isn't the enemy. The processing and the added sugars absolutely are. Instant oatmeal and most commercial granolas have had their fiber largely broken down to speed up cooking time. That matters because it's the fiber in whole oats that slows sugar absorption and blunts that insulin spike. When the fiber is compromised and sugar is added on top, what you're left with is effectively a high glycemic meal dressed in healthy packaging. The glycemic index, a measure of how fast food raises blood sugar, tells a clear story here. Steel-cut oats score around 55. Instant oatmeal can score as high as 83. That difference is not trivial when your arteries are already working extra hard in the morning hours. Here's the part that tends to surprise people. The common mistake isn't eating oatmeal. The mistake is trusting flavored, instant, or pre-packaged versions to behave like real oats. They don't. And certain cereals marketed specifically to older adults, high in fiber on the label, can still contain significant added sugar that undoes much of their benefit before the first bite is finished. There's also a subtler issue with fruit juice. Whole fruit, eaten with its fiber intact, raises blood sugar slowly. Juice, even 100% natural, removes that fiber completely. What's left is essentially liquid fructose, absorbed rapidly, creating exactly the kind of morning sugar surge that keeps blood pressure elevated well into the afternoon. So what does a better morning look like for someone managing blood pressure? Eggs are one of the most well-studied options. They're protein-rich, virtually sugar-free, and have been shown in multiple studies to have a neutral to beneficial effect on cardiovascular risk in older adults. A significant update from the outdated cholesterol fears many people still carry from the 1980s. Protein slows digestion, stabilizes blood sugar through the morning, and does not produce that inflammatory insulin response. A two-egg breakfast with a handful of spinach or avocado gives the body steady, calm fuel when it needs it most. If you love oatmeal, and many people do, the swap is simple. Choose plain rolled oats or steel-cut oats. Cook them yourself and sweeten with a small amount of cinnamon and a few walnuts or almonds. Cinnamon has been studied for its modest blood sugar lowering effects. Nuts add healthy fat that further slows glucose absorption. The oatmeal stays on the table. The spike does not. Greek yogurt, unsweetened, is another excellent option, particularly when paired with a small handful of berries. Berries contain natural antioxidants called flavonoids that have been associated with improved blood vessel flexibility and lower blood pressure over time. Blueberries, in particular, appear in multiple studies looking specifically at cardiovascular benefit in older populations. What all these alternatives share is this: they keep insulin stable during the exact window when blood vessels are most vulnerable. They reduce the inflammatory burden on arterial walls. And over weeks, not months, that consistency tends to show up in morning readings. One more thing worth addressing, because it comes up often. Some people have added supposedly healthy habits, like smoothies or fruit bowls to their mornings, and wonder why their blood pressure hasn't improved. High-fruit smoothies, especially those made with bananas, mangoes, or sweetened protein powders, can deliver a significant glycemic load that produces the same response as the flavored oatmeal. It isn't about the natural label. It's about how quickly sugars enter the bloodstream and what that does to blood vessels when they're already under morning stress. The body doesn't care about marketing. It responds to chemistry. Carol, our retired teacher, made one change. She replaced her instant oatmeal and juice with 2 scrambled eggs and a small bowl of plain oats with cinnamon and walnuts. Within 3 weeks, her morning readings had dropped by an average of 9 points. Her doctor noticed. She hadn't changed her medication. She'd changed her breakfast. That kind of outcome won't be identical for everyone. Bodies are different. Medications vary. Other factors matter. But the underlying biology is consistent, and it's worth taking seriously. If this gave you something to think about, consider sharing it with someone you care about who's navigating blood pressure concerns. And if you found it useful, subscribing keeps content like this coming your way. Practical, calm, and always designed with your health in mind.